So, a well known science communicator, who shall remain unnamed, was once asked during a Q&A session that if he ever met God and if he were to ask God one question, what would it be? And he said that I would ask God, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something like, I would ask God, why did he put so much pain and suffering in this world? Why is there so much pain and suffering in this world? So that is a good question to ask God, right? Why do we suffer? What's the reason for suffering? Why isn't everything just peaceful and normal and everyone's happy? Is there a goal to suffering? So let's examine this closely. Why do we suffer? Now, of course, I do not want anyone to suffer. And the reason I'm saying this is because I have experienced pain and suffering. And it's not something that I would wish upon anyone, obviously. But as much as we try to avoid pain and suffering, try to lessen pain and suffering both for ourselves and for our families, unfortunately, it's not always avoidable, and pain and suffering comes along, and we have to work through it. We have to bear the pain and suffering. So imagine a world where there is no pain and suffering at all, where everyone is happy and content with life, with their own lives, with the situation of the world. There is no natural disasters, there is no wars, nothing like that, and everyone lives in peace and harmony. Can you imagine such a world? Quite possibly. It's easy to imagine such a world. But in the absence of pain and suffering, would there ever be a need or a want to do anything to make our lives better, to improve our lives, and to improve the lives of others? If we were always comfortable, never hungry, never suffering, and we got everything we wanted, then would we ever make any progress at all in life? What's the point, right? Everything is good, everything is dandy. There's no reason to strive, there's no reason to go to work, there's no reason to be creative, there's no reason to create. The reason we create, the reason we are creative and we invent things and we make progress and we evolve is to simplify our lives, to make our lives comfortable, to help others, to assist others, to progress as a civilization, right? And that comes about because we suffer and we experience pain. And we want to try to avoid suffering. After all, we are surviving on this planet. We are surviving in an environment, in a very harsh environment, where we have to farm and get food for ourselves. We have to eat and drink. And that requires some striving, some struggle, some suffering. Right? Would we have the technology we have today if we didn't suffer, if things weren't inconvenient? The reason we have so much convenience in our lives is because we have seen the struggles of trying to do things the hard way. Right? It's a struggle. It was a struggle to get from point A to point B. And so we invent transportation. It was a struggle to keep ourselves warm and comfortable. And so we have homes that have running water and heat, electricity that can help us run our lives comfortably. Right? It was a struggle to send a message to someone far away, to go and meet someone far away. And that is why we have transportation and communication and long distance communication and emails and messages and phones and the internet. All of that had to come about because we had to struggle first to see the inconvenience and the pain and the suffering that we had to go through, just to make our lives easy and comfortable. And that forces us to get up and be creative and to invent. Right? Our minds had to think about all of this and find ways to creatively come up with solutions that would make our lives easier, simpler. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone else around us. And by doing that, it helped us to survive, and it helped others survive as well. It's why we have rules and regulations and laws that govern our society. And we hope and expect that everyone should obey these laws and these regulations. So, is that the reason why we suffer? Because suffering pushes us to improve our lives, to make progress, to evolve and to grow, and to create civilization to what it is today. If you look at civilization just 100 years ago, go back 200, 300 years, times were really hard, times were really tough, right? For people. A lot of people suffered, a lot of people died. And to avoid that and to minimize suffering and deaths, we had to innovate. We had to create. So perhaps that is the reason why we suffer and experience pain.